Hey everyone, welcome to the Game Dev Game Show. Hope you're doing well. This is episode 1. I have already botched it by messing up the camera. That's all good.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, just awkwardly squat for the rest of the thing, and then
we got this.
No, I'll fix this real quick. But today we're joined by Mike Geig. Mike's been on a crazy tour with all the Unity stuff going on. Mike, do you want to take a second and maybe tell everyone who you are, kinds of stuff you do?
Sure. So my name is Mike Geig. I run the advocacy team at Unity. So that means we do a lot of events, a lot of, game jams, hackathons, school visits, customer visits, a lot of game dev related stuff all over the world, which is pretty awesome. I've been at Unity for about 11 years now. And I used, people may know me from like video tutorials and stuff. I did a lot of those back in the day and the Unity live streams, stuff like that. But now I'm predominantly on the road, just talking to awesome people like yourselves. So that's me.
I kind of like parasocially met Mike a long time ago in those old school Unity tutorials you used to do on the live streams.
Oh yeah.
Man, those are awesome.
So, I miss those. That's back when we could just do like stick figure pictures, stuff. Like the company's changed a bit. Like now we have brand guidelines. They don't really, they frown upon stuff like
There was a charm to that old schoolness, man. All right, let's do it. We're going to start the show. I've explained to Mike kind of how the rules work, but in case you're unfamiliar, there are 4 groups of 5 questions. I asked Mike to pick 2 major categories. Most of the questions, of the multiple choice questions he will get, will be in the 2 major categories. He picked technical and design, but there will be a few curveballs further down the road. Mike, are you ready to play the Game Dev Game Show?
I suppose I am.
All right. Let's do it.
Fantastic.
Okay.
I should mention something about power-ups too, right?
Oh yeah. You have plenty of power-ups to use. I don't anticipate you. Maybe I should tell you about them on the first one. The questions. Your first 3 questions are easy ones. We'll get into the flow here. Your first question is: which of these is not a game engine? Is it A, Unity, B, Godot, C, Microsoft PowerPoint, or D, Unreal Engine?
Well, that is a tough one for sure. Now,
do you want me to read you your power-ups?
I will say though, like, is it Godot or is it Godot or Godot?
Ooh, I've said it both ways. Which way do you say it?
I usually say Godot because that makes it sound fancier.
Yeah,
but it's definitely the whole GIF thing all over again. But I'm gonna go with PowerPoint not being an engine. Personally, I feel pretty good about that answer.
His final answer is C, Microsoft PowerPoint. That is correct.
So you could absolutely use scripting to build a game inside PowerPoint.
I know. I was thinking. I almost said maybe that actually could be a legitimate answer.
But you could use it to make games, but I wouldn't consider it a game engine. So I feel comfortable with that.
Okay. Question number 2. In game design, what is the name for the thing that guides the player's moment-to-moment gameplay? Is it A, core game loop, B, feedback, C, progression system, or D, ludonarrative dissonance? And while you think... go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, apart from that last one, they all guide the player's decisions, right? But go ahead. You were going to say something there while I was thinking.
While you're thinking, I was going to mention the power-ups. You do have a couple power-ups. We have the Blade of Balance. It kind of cuts your answers in half, leaves you with 2 possible answers. You have the Spectral Spectacles. It's a 30-second Google. The Hive Mind Helmet, you can ask chat. Hand of Hedging is 2 picks. You get 2 guesses. Don't worry about the timer. I'll give you another 30 seconds. and the staff of scoring. That's one to use on a question you're really confident about, maybe a hard question for those extra points.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so the question is, what guides the player's moment-to-moment decisions? Correct. And what were the options again?
A, core game loop. B, feedback. C, progression system. Or D, ludonarrative dissonance. It's a hard word to pronounce.
I'm going to go with A on that one, the core game loop. Even though you adjust your play based on feedback, and the progression ultimately also changes how you play. But moment to moment, I'd say core game loop.
We're answering A, core game loop, and that is correct. I agree with you, Mike. I think the part of the challenge with the design questions, and I believe this about game design in general, is there's no like 100% right answers in game design.
Right.
And so
everything can be argued.
Yeah. Like if you would have answered feedback, I might have given you the points because I think there's a strong case for those. I tried to make it like one of those best answer questions that
I like it. It's good. Keeps you on your feet.
All right. Question number 3. In Unity, the transform component stores a game object's position, rotation, and
inventory.
Is it A, name, B, scale, C, velocity, or D, HP?
HP. So interestingly enough, the transform component can actually store the game object's name by virtue of the transform knows the game object is attached to, which has a name, and therefore you can shorthand that to the transform has the name. However, I'm pretty sure that's not what you're going for. I'm also pretty certain it's not HP. For obviously the author H.P. Lovecraft, as everyone knows, doesn't stay inside a transform. So I forget what the other option was, but I'm going to go with scale because the transform is an object's position, rotation, and scale in mathematical matrices.
He's answering
I feel really good about that one.
B for scale. And that is correct. Okay, part of the problem is with this is I write the questions, and I'm pretty well informed about Unity. I've been using it for a long time.
Good. I think that's great.
But there may be a few when we get to the more advanced ones that
no, I'm just
probably
teasing.
Know more about me.
Well, it's like these game shows where you got to like pull out the drama, right? You got to
the
whole process known. So I was like, all right, let's play around with it a bit. It's totally fine. But it's very obvious once you put in the context of rotation, position, and
yeah. Once we get to the more advanced ones, we'll see how good of a question writer I am. Okay. Question number 4. This is a design question. A character being in the story a pacifist, but through gameplay having to fight to win is an example of A, a feedback loop, B, reverse progression, C, game feel, or D, ludonarrative dissonance.
All right. So a character who is a pacifist but being forced into conflict to progress the game removes the player's agency, right? So it's funny because I immediately just know the answer I'm going to give, and I'm trying to remember what the other ones are to be like, it's not that one. It is not reverse progression, right? Because, you could consider it a regression of sorts, but it's not really scalar. So could I hear those options one more time, maybe?
A is the feedback loop. B is reverse progression. C is game feel. And D is ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah. Okay. So it's definitely not a form of game loop or progression. It's definitely not necessarily feedback because it's the options you're making or the options you're kind of forced to take. So I'm going to go with ludonarrative dissonance because it's contrary to what the player is supposed to be doing or what you assume the player is supposed to be doing.
Your final answer is D, ludonarrative dissonance, and that is correct. So far, a perfect 4 for 4. Going into the 5th question, this is your first medium difficulty question.
Okay,
it is
I feel like I'm ready.
A technical question.
Fantastic.
Question number 5. I want to make a 2D game about stacking boxes. Which component should my boxes have other than a box collider? Is it A, mesh renderer, B, rigid body, C, rigid body 2D, or D, canvas scalar?
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
In this scenario, do the boxes need to react to gravity, or is it purely about placement?
They need to react to gravity.
Fantastic. All right. So it is not a mesh renderer. Well, I mean, it could be, but we're not talking about meshes here. We're talking about 2D. So you go with a sprite renderer in that case. A rigid body is generally what allows objects to participate in physics. However, as you've hinted at with the answer that comes right after that, there's a 2D equivalent of that. Though I feel like throwing a curveball at you because you said a box collider, and I believe in you, it's called the box collider 2D. But that's pedantic. So anyway, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. So I'm going to go with a rigid body 2D, which allows the game object, or the sprite in this case, to utilize Unity's 2D physics, which is an implementation of box 2D.
His final answer is C, rigid body 2D, and that is correct. This is the first ever game show where I think you might flip the turn the tables and start.
Oh, I've got questions lined up for you. I'm near the end.
Okay, and with that, we're done with the first group. So far, Mike is a perfect 5 for 5.
Fantastic.
Soon we'll be moving into group 2, but this is the first intermission. There are 3 medium difficulty questions and 1 hard one in the second group. So the questions are going to start getting significantly harder, and you're even going to have some questions. There's an art category question in this group, so you're going to have some curveballs.
That's going to be
up.
my kryptonite because I am not an artist.
I'm going to take a second to maybe catch up in chat, Mike. If you want to, get some water or do whatever.
Sure.
Usually, this is where we have the guest talk about themselves, but Mike helpfully covered us when I messed up the camera at the start. So
how about I ask the chat a question?
Go ahead, ask chat the question.
All right. Hey chat, I got a question for you all. What's it called when you balance a game where units have strengths and weaknesses, sort of like rock, paper, scissors, where one thing beats the next, which beats the next, which beats the first?
Ooh, that is a good question.
I could come up with some multiple choice here. So multiple choice is, let's see, A, balanced game design. B, terrible game design. C, you shouldn't play with scissors. And D, orthogonal unit differentiation.
I don't know the words of that last one.
Orthogonal unit differentiation.
My multiple choice test strategy is usually just look for the one with the big words.
It's a pretty solid strategy.
Mike, one thing I am going to have you do, do you have the stream up on a second monitor or something like that?
I do.
Okay. When because some of these questions are going to get pretty wordy, I think it might be helpful for you to have, instead of me reading them all the answers and stuff, just have that as like a reference to look at. Okay.
There you go. And someone in chat did correct me. I always pronounce it orthogonal because I learned it from reading it, but it is orthogonal. And it's just, but I originally learned it by reading it without hearing someone say it. So my head is always orthogonal. Yeah. I always say antithesis instead of antithesis as well for the same reason, but it's orthogonal unit differentiation.
I've got a whole thing going back and forth with chat with the way that I pronounce words. Like I say duration instead of duration, which is just straight up wrong. I'm adding extra letters, but
caramel versus caramel.
Yep.
Yeah. No.
I'm seeing a lot of chat answer orthogonal. Is that right?
Yeah.
Orthogonal.
I think everyone just goes with the that is the correct one. Orthogonal unit differentiation is where like A beats B and B beats C, but C beats A. So, yep.
All right. Are we ready to move on to Group 2, the Game Dev Game Show?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do this thing.
You can see there's a group summary here. 3 technical questions, 1 game design, 1 art. Let's get started. Question 6. In flow state theory, what are the 2 axes you're trying to balance? Is it A, difficulty and content, B, pace and progression, C, boredom and fun, or D, skill and challenge?
Ooh, okay. So this is an interesting one because it's kind of all of them again. Because ultimately we're balancing the boredom and fun, right? Which is, based on how the ebbs and flows of a game, though you don't really want boredom so much, right? You have your pace progression. You have to feel like you're moving forward. It has to move at a reasonable pace, because if it moves too slow, you're going to get bored. If it moves too fast, you're going to be like, what's happening? We need to slow things down. Though ultimately, I believe it boils down to either difficulty and content, right, versus skill and challenge, or what we'd call stress versus relaxation. As your skill grows, so too does the challenge, or so too does the equipment, and things like that. So I'm going to end up answering D here for skill and challenge.
Your final answer is D, skill and challenge, and that is correct. Perfectly reasoned. That's exactly the thought that I went through when I wrote the question. I did kind of throw a little bit of a tricky answer on there. Boredom and fun are on the original. They are on the original diagram, but those are the names of the regions. You kind of have that flow state region right in the middle, and then too low is boredom, too high is fun. You
need to be right in the middle there.
I think Unity crashed on me real quick. I'll just restart.
Uh-oh.
It's all
that
good.
Never happens.
It's all
I didn't
good.
realize this was running in Unity. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. This is all built in Unity. The good thing is I believe the game saves the state of the questions. If not, I can run through. We know you got them all right, so we can just run through. But I'm pretty sure that the game saves the state of the questions. Big thanks to Isopod, kind of our technical expert in chat. He's the one who built a lot of this, most of it.
So it's his fault that it crashed.
Yeah. Yep. No,
the guy in chat saying RIP Unity. I got you. All right.
Yeah, so if we do this real fast, this is actually the first time this has ever happened. I know there is a way to resume the save state, but we'll just go through and answer the questions really fast. Mike, do you have another question for chat that might cover the time here?
I do. All right, so in Unity, when a material or a shader is either broken or missing, everyone knows that weird fuchsia magenta color it turns. And that color specifically is 255-0255. All right, that's the color code for that color. My question for the audience is, what is the significance of that color? Why that color? This one is a multiple choice. I just want to see if anybody knows.
Do you want a job for writing questions for the Game Dev Game Show? You're on fire with these.
Make it looks pretty. Yeah. Any other guesses? Anyone else know why that color? Because that color has a historical significance, that goes back a long way. Does it matches the subnet mask of the network code? No. Purple makes people twitch? No. Clashes with everything is kind of close-ish, right? So suppose I can give the answer, or should I just give the answer at this point? Are we
give
back
the
up
answer.
and running?
We're right back up and running.
So originally, graphical hardware couldn't render transparency. There was no such thing as an alpha layer of images, right? Everything was a solid image. And so in order to have sprites for like 2D games and stuff, we had to figure out a way to not draw some of the image. We had to pick a color that was universally so awful that you would never use it in any art. And if your background was that color, it just wouldn't be rendered by the graphics card, right? Hardware was key to just not draw that color. And that color happens to be 255-0255, meaning nothing. Do not render this color. So when a material is missing or broken in Unity, we just make it the nothing color, which happens to be bright magenta.
Jeez.
And so there you go.
That is, I really need to get you on here to write some miscellaneous category questions. That's a good one. I had always felt like, yeah, it is that color because it's one that you would never ever use. I mean, maybe
it's bad.
it's just like I can't think of any context where it's like, yeah, that's the color I want.
Exactly.
All right, we are right back up and running. We're in group 2. You have your second question of group 2. It is a technical medium difficulty question.
All right.
Question 7 is, why do most engines use floats rather than doubles? Is it A, for better precision, B, for better performance, C, for being better at large scale, or D, they don't?
So this is interesting too, because I don't know what we mean by most engines. I can tell you why Unity uses floats instead of doubles. Though I do know that other engines will actually use doubles or other stuff. And for the folks who don't know, float stands for floating point number. So that's 3.1 as opposed to just 3, which would be an integer. So floats are interesting because they're slightly less accurate than, say, a double number variable. However, they are significantly faster, which means that they are not better at large scale, because the bigger you get, the more that error is compounded, which is why large worlds can be difficult, and determinism is really challenging, because with a float, nothing is ever actually equal to something else because of the floating point error. It only gets close. So I'm going to go with B, better performance, is the reason that Unity uses it. However, that most engines thing is kind of throwing me for a loop, because I don't know that I would say that most engines do that. It just depends, because I know Epic uses C++ for their Unreal Engine, and that might have the option to use different value types there. But anyway, for this case, if we're talking Unity, I'm going to say B for better performance.
Your final answer is B, better performance, and that is correct. Yeah, most engines, I guess, I should have written why should most engines. I don't know.
Totally fine.
I feel like maybe it's just me. I'm a very like amateur level programmer when it comes to the computer science stuff. But I just kind of prefer, I don't know, I just kind of prefer the way that floats work, and like I can wrap my head around better. I can just wrap my head around them better, you know? Does that make sense? From like a emotional standpoint, that makes sense to me, but I'm not sure if there's like scientific basis behind that.
I mean, they're just, I like floats because they have character, because it's true that you can never actually say a float is equal to 5, because at some point in some massive calculation, it might be like 4.99999 repeated, or 5.0001 with a 1 at the very end, because of the floating point imprecision. But it's very, very fast. And so, most software knows to like account for those minute changes and stuff like that. But again, the closer you get away from like world origin, or the bigger this is, the more times you do this calculation, you're going to be carrying some error, which normally works in your benefit because it allows a slightly chaos effect, right? But if you need absolute determinism for a calculation to end up the exact same way every single time, then man, that's determinism with floats is really, really hard.
I think that like slight bit of chaos is the emotional aspect I was trying to get into. That like that just resonates with how I see game design and game development. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just that little unknowable chaos. All right. Next question is a technical medium difficulty question. The problem of fast-moving objects passing through colliders in physics engines is generally called A, ray marching, B, static mismatch, C, tunneling, or D, dynamic collision.
Okay. Well, I know that ray marching is a method for basically calculating graphical stuff, or moving along a ray, right? Which is not really what we're talking about here. Actually, ray marching can be useful for solving this sort of problem. Static mismatch doesn't really make sense, because static would mean that they're not moving and thus not passing through each other. Dynamic collision is a setting in Unity that you can actually choose in order to have objects move along a path to help prevent what we're talking about here. So instead, I'm going to go with C, which is where an object tunnels through another object, basically by blipping to the other side and missing a collision altogether.
C, tunneling, is Mike's final answer, and that is correct.
Oh, but we have someone in the chat says none of this is right.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, voice your opinion, and we'll tell you why it's no. All right. Group number 2. The third question is our first hard difficulty question. It is in the technical category. All right. Are you ready for your first hard question?
I'm not sure. We're going to find out here in a moment.
Question number 9. You are making a pinball game, and the ball keeps tunneling through the bumper. What should you set the collision detection property on the bumper to? Is it A, discrete, B, continuous, C, continuous dynamic, or D, continuous speculative?
Okay. So discrete is probably what it's already set to, which is why it's tunneling through. It actually kind of funny anecdote about this too. I was playing around with the Unity Tips card game that we did at Unite right now, or a couple of weeks ago. And one of the cards I was literally looking at today was this question as a Unity tip.
No.
So it's like fresh it was fresh in my mind. So there is continuous. Continuous is an option, right? Continuous collision detection, or CCD. Is something where basically your ball would be a continuous collision regardless of the collider settings or the rigid body settings of any other object it hits. However, continuous dynamic means that it's going to be continuous for other objects that are marked as continuous, and discrete for other objects that are marked as discrete. And continuous speculative is just not a thing. So I'm actually quite curious whether you pick continuous or continuous dynamic, because both are actually correct depending on the settings of the flipper. And so, should I gamble it? Should I risk it?
You do have your power-ups. You do have your power-ups.
I have my power-ups. We're only on the second set here, man. When it comes to games, I'm a bit of a risk taker, so I'm going to assume you went with C, continuous dynamic. I might be wrong, but I'm going to take that gamble and see which one you picked.
All right. C, continuous dynamic, is your final answer, and that is incorrect. Now let me preface why. Okay, and Mike, if I'm wrong about this, just
speculative. Okay.
Continuous speculative. This is straight out of the Unity 2022 manual, which is what I use.
I might be wrong.
Continuous dynamic, the algorithm that it uses, does not include angular momentum. And continuous speculative, the other algorithm, I can't remember names of the algorithm.
You're right. We did add that one.
Continuous speculative considers angular momentum. And so literally in the manual, it gives this example of the pinball game and when it is appropriate to use this, because the bumper is, all angular.
Yes.
That's how it...
That's good. That's good. Actually, I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I was just thinking back to there was originally just discrete and continuous, then there was discrete, continuous dynamic, and then they did add another one later, and I just have never used it. And good job, well done.
Yeah,
that was a good question. That one was hard.
Making me nervous.
Well, three of them could be doable, but you're right.
You probably could. Honestly, okay, if I'm being honest with myself, what do I do when I'm in this situation? I just try all three of them and see if it works. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
I'm not thinking, oh yeah, this is a continuous speculative. I'm not that good. I just click the buttons and flip the things until something works.
No, it's good. It's good. I learned. Thank you.
All right. The last question of group 2 is the first question that is not in your preferred categories. It is an art question of medium difficulty.
All right, I'm ready.
Question 10. Which color completes the analogous color scheme of red, violet, and... Is it A, yellow, green, B, blue, violet, C, orange, violet, or D, D, white?
I have no idea what any of that means. All right. So, video color scheme of red, violet, violet, and I mean, from a pattern matching perspective, I would assume one would be like violet green, to like be the spectrum there. I'm also thinking through my Roy G. Biv. I don't know if that has anything to do with the rainbow at all. I think I'm gonna have to ask someone. Either gonna ask someone or I'm gonna have to like Google this one. You know what? I feel like this audience here is a very artsy audience. So which one is it allows me to ask, the MetaMinder one?
That is the Hive Mind helmet. Do you want to use the Hive Mind helmet to ask chat?
Absolutely want to use the Hive Mind helmet.
Okay, we're going to activate the Hive Mind helmet. Give me a second to get the poll started. Let's see what chat thinks. Kind of going back to that thing about me mispronouncing words. It'd probably help if I pronounce this right. I think it's analogous. Is that right? How do you pronounce that word, Mike?
I would say analogous, but then again, I learned most of my words from reading it. So
yeah, I've never said it out loud. I just realized that. Which answer is correct? Is it A, B, C, or D? All right, I'm starting a poll now. 2-minute duration. We'll bring it up.
My camera disappeared
on screen.
It happened. The thing you mentioned.
The thing I mentioned, it happened. Yep. There's
Did Discord just cut it out, or did it?
Anytime I click out of Discord, like if I'm starting a poll on Twitch, it'll cut out. All right, we have a lot of people voting B currently. It seems like chat's mind is pretty set on B. But you still got some time left. Maybe they want to change their answer. Also, remember you're playing against chat, so they could
that's
be.
What I was saying. But by going with them, then if they're wrong, I'm wrong, and fine. But so, yeah, red, violet. Okay, violet feels like there's a flow there from red, violet to something else that would be. So I feel like, it'd be called violet blue instead of blue violet, but I have to go with B on this one.
Okay. Mike's final answer is B.
Yeah. I hope we're all wrong.
We'll see if it's correct. It is correct. You got to thank chat for that one.
Fantastic. Thanks, chat. I appreciate that one. We win together.
Yeah. Okay. So for this question, analogous colors are colors on the same side of the color wheel. It's like 3 to 4 colors. Complementary colors, which you may have heard before, are directly opposite of each other on the color wheel. Orange violet is one that I made up. Yellow green, I think, is complementary because it's on the opposite side of these. And white is just in the center. So,
okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Fantastic.
That is the end of the second group. You so far are only one question down. That's perfectly fine. You actually are the all-time leader. We've done one episode.
I was about to say, yeah. Right now, it's pretty easy to hold.
No,
the trophy.
Just say that under your breath. I'm the all-time leader of one episode.
I'll accept it. I'll take it.
This is another chat break. We are running a little bit behind because of the technical difficulties. So if you want to jump into the third group, Mike, I'm ready to go.
Let's hop right in. I'll save my last question for the end.
Okay, sounds good. There is one more intermission between 3 and 4, so we can do that.
Fantastic.
All right, group 3. 3 medium difficulty questions, 2 hard ones. You see we have some business questions in here. We have some miscellaneous questions in here. Going to be a couple curveballs. This is when it gets tough. Are you ready?
Man, going right into miscellaneous with a hard one. All right, let's do this thing.
All right, here we go. Question number 11. Completing a research in a tech tree that gives faster research times could not be considered which of these? Is it A, a positive feedback loop, B, a negative feedback loop, C, snowballing, or D, a catch-up mechanic?
Okay, so Yes. So obviously, I feel like it's not a negative thing, but you have the positive feedback loop. Is it really feedback? Potentially. Snowballing is, obviously what you call it when a thing grows and grows and grows at an exponential rate. So I feel snowballing is definitely yes, that's what this is. So that's not the right answer. A catch-up mechanic, potentially, right? However, a catch-up mechanic requires that you are behind in order for that to really be considered, like a blue shell. The person in first place in Mario Kart doesn't get a blue shell. That's what makes the blue shell a catch-up mechanic. However, again, it does allow you to catch up. It is a positive thing, right? You do this thing and it allows you to grow in a positive way. So I guess my answer is going to be, it is not B, or B is my answer. It is not a negative feedback loop.
B, negative feedback loop is your final answer, and that is correct. Yeah, this one comes right up my alley. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, Mike, but I previously worked as a designer on 4X games. So yeah, tech tree research and pacing and all that kind of stuff, right up my alley. Nice. And you're exactly right about all of these things. Snowballing is kind of what I would call it first. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it really technically, it's a positive feedback loop, and it can be used as a catch-up mechanic. If you fall behind on the research tree in a 4X game, that's like being in last place in Mario Kart. And so maybe you offer the player some kind of event or some kind of special research to help get them kind of back in the game.
Gotcha. Whenever I would work on stuff like this, I always called it an engine mechanic, because it's like I'm building this engine that's now going to propel me faster than walking.
Yeah.
So right.
Are you a 4X like strategy guy or no?
I want to be. However, I play every 4X game the exact same way. I am full on war, and I just want to see how quickly I can conquer someone and then just waste my resources, putter out, and do it. Okay. That's how I do it. I'm like just full on destruction warships, and then everyone just outlasts me, and then I die, and I'm totally cool with it.
So you're more of like a 1X player. Okay.
Well, you have to explore in order to conquer, and you have to do some research to get the warships. So I just have a very singular mind about games like that.
That's fine. I play in a similar way. Yeah, I'm very aggro when it comes to those. All right. The second question of group number 3 is a technical question. It is of medium difficulty.
All right.
Question number 12. Using Unity 2022, which render pipeline should I use for an untethered VR game with a cartoony aesthetic? Is it A, built-in render pipeline, B, universal render pipeline or URP, C, HDRP, or D, quadruple ARP?
I really appreciate the name quadruple ARP because that's pretty awesome. But unfortunately, to my knowledge, unless something has come out that I'm not aware of, that's not a real one. And so obviously, high definition render pipeline gets us like really, really, really high end graphics and things like that. But it's not really well suited to run on an untethered VR device, right? Just due to sheer power and things like that. Though we're getting better at it. So it does bring us to an interesting A versus B, because both are actually perfectly well suited to doing this. Now, built-in render pipeline, it's a little bit older, but it has a lot of known things in terms of like shaders, bug fixes, how to do certain things. So that would be a very solid choice in order for making a VR game. That being said, a lot of our new templates and sample projects and things like that are all using URP, especially like the new shader graph stuff and a lot of the new more performant rendering stuff, the foveated rendering and things like that. So with that, I'm going to go B, URP as my choice.
B, URP is your final answer, and it is correct. Yeah, this is another one that's directly out of the Unity 2022 manual. Kind of has like a matrix breakdown, and it was for all the reasons you said. The built-in RP, exactly like you said, is a plausible answer here. But do you think URP is, if you had to make the recommendation, is there a better choice? between the two?
Well, no, I mean, I would always say URP unless you happen to be a seasoned veteran with all of these tools built and all this stuff already and built in. And it's like, well, that's hard to like be like, yeah, give that all up to learn something new. Like, depends on what you're trying to do. However, if you're starting from scratch or you're not fully tethered to one versus the other, then I would go URP every time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, that's why it's the right
little
answer.
Anecdote. Internally, because it used to be called the lightweight render pipeline, and then we renamed it to the universal render pipeline. And when we did that, everyone internally went, wait, no, we can't, because now everyone's just going to say URP, like URP. And everyone's like, oh, no, we didn't think about that. No, you have to call it universal render pipeline. I'm like, there's no way. Everyone's always going to refer to it as universal render pipeline. So it is URP, and we just laugh about it now when we hear it.
Not to get too off track, but recently at the new Unite thing, didn't you make some big announcements about the render pipelines?
In the future, yeah, where our plan is to unify rendering. That's not in Unity 6. That comes after Unity 6, but we will end up eventually deprecating the built-in render pipeline and bring you a new, basically unified scriptable rendering pipeline. And of course, you can always make your own as well. That's what the SRPs are about, your ability to make your own custom rendering pipeline. However, the ones that we provide will be unified.
Yeah, I think that's a good change. I know that's something that a lot of people, I think, were kind of hyped about when I saw the roadmap for the future. Either way.
Oh, yeah.
Group 3, we have another curveball question for you. This is a business category question.
I'm so bad at business.
It is medium difficulty. Question number 13. How many first week unit sales should you expect from a game with 30,000 wish lists? Is it A, about 4,500, B, about 7,500, C, about 1,500, or D, 10,000 sales?
Oh, man. So I'm going to preface that everything I'm about to say is based purely on guesswork and instinct because I have no background in any of this. I don't believe in the concept of money. I think it's made up and ridiculous, and capitalism scares me. But I would think that if you had 30,000 wish lists, a 10,000 actual sales would be pretty darn good. I, being kind of the realist, would probably opt for the 1,500. However, I do think this is a Google opportunity, as chat is throwing, Isobot specifically is calling out. So the glasses power up. So how does this one work?
All right. This is the Spectral Spectacles. It does allow you to open up Google and go ahead, and I'll give you 30 extra seconds to kind of search it up. Your time starts now. Chat, what is chat saying? Chat says they think, oh, interesting. I don't want to say out loud. I don't want to influence Mike any, but I do see chat's guesses.
You're
also welcome to bust out a calculator if you need to, Mike. I had to bust out a calculator to come up with the answers.
Fair enough. Well,
all of these answers, too, also have the little squiggly tilde before them, which is to denote it's in that range.
I'm going to go with, so just base, for whatever reason, when I typed this question into Google, it came up with a whole bunch of information about Eminem, the rapper.
Oh.
I don't know why, but I am going to go with my instinct here and just completely guess that the answer is C, 1,500.
C, 1,500 is your final answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that is incorrect. It's actually A, 4,500. Okay, the source for this. The source for pretty much all of my business questions come directly from Chris Zukowski at howtomarketagame.com. He's kind of like, are you familiar with Chris Zukowski, Mike?
I'm not, no.
Yeah, he's kind of like the marketing guru for a lot of indies. And he has all these statistics and benchmarks and stuff like that. But
Nice. That's better than I would have expected after a 30K wish list. So.
Yeah. It's about 10 to 20% of your wish lists you can expect in the first week sales. Now, there are obviously lots of outliers. There are people who do way better, people who do way less. But for those like publishers and stuff like that, that's about their number that they're using to estimate this kind of stuff.
I wonder if it matters for indie versus others. Because the thing that kind of popped up for me here was like, some of these games where it was like 8,000 wish list ended up being 500 copies. So that's 0.06. So anyway, good to know.
I think it definitely does. In fact, Chris Zukowski points that out. He breaks it all down by the size of the game and a whole bunch of stuff. Really great reference for anyone out there who wants to learn a little bit more about the biz side of indie game dev.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
All right, your next question is one in your category, but it is a hard question. It is a game design question. Hard. It's question number 14. Which of the mechanics are often criticized for disrupting the pacing, drawing focus to the wrong areas, and zero tolerance fail states? Is it A, random encounters, B, combo moves, C, quick time events, or D, ultimate abilities?
And that, again, it's an interesting one. I don't think it's ultimate abilities. I mean, because everyone loves ultimate abilities, and I think they're super cool. And there's not really a fail safe of like pulling off the ultimate ability. I might be wrong, but I'm thinking that one's safe. Combo moves, we got to have the combo breakers, right? So combo moves are super duper important. So that leaves me to A and C now. I have grown to hate random encounter in games because, you're like walking around, all of a sudden this thing pops up, and you're like, oh, that sucks. But I would say that a random encounter doesn't really have a fail state, right? Personally, but time events do. And with quick time events, you can fail the button presses, right? So that is a fail state, a zero tolerance fail state. And I would say that definitely draws focus to the wrong area, because if I'm trying to watch like this school cinematic happening, but I'm focused on what buttons are popping up, I'm not even watching all the cool graphics. That was originally my problem with Final Fantasy VIII, where I wanted to see like all the super cool moves. I'm sitting here watching this little bar doing all my gun sword trigger pulls at the right time. So I'm going to go with C, quick time events.
C, quick time events is the correct answer. Do you want to know the source? Well, the partial source for this question actually comes...
Is every gamer who can't play God of War.
Part of this question, and why I felt comfortable putting on here, which there are multiple interpretations, I would say, of this, is this comes directly from Mike's video game podcast. A long... I think this episode is from like 2017. I went through your backlog while I was writing this.
I forgot about that.
Even after all this time, you still have the same criticism. I think you talked directly about Final Fantasy VIII, and you said the same thing. You're like, I'm trying to watch the cool graphics, but I'm so focused on the buttons that my attention's divided.
Well, Nietzsche says the true measure of a man is consistency, so I guess I'm doing all right.
You're doing great.
That's funny that you pulled that from an old podcast.
All right. Next question. This is a miscellaneous question, and it is hard difficulty. This is going to be maybe the hardest question in the game so far.
Okay.
Maybe not. Depends on how much you know about this. Question number 15. Around 1990, Yuji Naka turned a prototype of a character rolling in a ball through a spiraling tube into this classic game. Is it A, Super Monkey Ball, B, Katamari Damacy, C, Sonic the Hedgehog, or D, Fusion Frenzy?
So, first off, I have no idea what the answer is, but I think I can logic this one out a little bit purely based on the date of it, because I know Katamari Damacy was a 3D game, and you weren't doing a lot of 3D games in 1990. Super Monkey Ball, earlier, but also a 3D game. So you're not doing 3D games in 1990. Fusion Frenzy, same deal, right? Actually, I've never played Fusion Frenzy. It might be 2D. I have no idea. But 1990 feels about the the Christmas morning when I got my Sega Genesis that came bundled with Sonic the Hedgehog. And so I'm gonna go with C, Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis, which I believe was like my super ultimate Christmas present, 1991 or 92.
C, Sonic the Hedgehog is your final answer, and that is correct. Yeah, I thought I'd drop a couple of clues in this one. The date is a clue. The developer, I wasn't sure if maybe you'd be familiar with the developer. I thought about putting Sega on here. That applies to both Super Monkey Ball and Sonic the Hedgehog. But, and who publishes Katamari? I'm actually not sure. But Fusion...
I'm not sure either. Yeah.
Fusion Frenzy is that mini game that came on the original Xbox that like everyone had the demo for free if you had Halo, I think.
Right. Okay. I do remember that one. Was Super Monkey Ball 3D or 2D? I don't even remember.
It's 3D. Yeah, it's 3D.
All right.
The kind of trick of this question is all 4 games feature someone rolling in a ball or, you know.
There you go. You could have gone with Marble Madness. That would have been that would have been a real, like, now I have to think about it.
Yeah. All right. That is the end of Group 3. Oh.
Right.
I hope you're ready to start Group 4 because we're straight into it. Yep, we're going to go straight into it if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. Let's do this thing.
All right. Question number 16. Which is an appropriate key for a character theme based on a ghostly villain? This is a audio question, by the way, of medium difficulty. One of those curveballs for you. In this last group, there'll be a lot of curveballs. Okay. Is the answer A, D major, B, D sharp minor, C, C major, or D, A minor?
I wish my oldest son was here. He knows music like to an insane amount, plays like 11 instruments and can just hear a song and be like, oh, this is the key of it. I don't even know what the key of a song is. I play the drums because I just need to know how to count to 4, and that's all you have to do to play the drums. So I feel like I need to like cut this one in half to lower down my options here.
That would be a good idea, I think. Would you like to use the blade of balance? The blade of balance sounds perfect. Okay. Let me click this. We're going to use the blade of balance. The blade of balance will eliminate 2 answers, leaving you with only 2 to pick from.
Okay.
So the answer is either, don't worry about the timer. The answer is either B, D sharp minor, or D, A minor.
So you ruled out the one that I was just going to randomly pick anyway. So I could use the pick 2 on this, but that seems like such a waste. So I've got 4 questions left. So I'm going to go with D sharp minor because it's got more letters in it, and I feel that's more villainy.
D sharp minor is your final answer.
That's correct.
That is correct. You're right.
Yes.
D sharp minor is the right answer.
I'm going to tell my son, I got a music question right. Look at that.
When you look up the keys, I was looking up kind of the thing I like to teach, I guess, with the audio questions is like, even if you know just a little bit of music theory, it actually really helps about like selecting your songs and kind of setting the tone and the emotional feel. And if you look up, there's lots of places to look this up, but if you look up keys and kind of the emotions associated with them, at the chart that I was looking at, D sharp minor literally says, if ghosts could speak. This is what they would sound like. So
I like to joke around that the trinity of game development is programming, design, game art, audio. So is everyone aware?
Yeah.
Always forgets that one.
Yeah. That's funny. The Trinity, huh? All right. Let's do this. Okay. So this is group 4. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it before we started, but now we can look at the questions. You have another art question of medium difficulty. That'll be the next one. 2 more in your preferred category, technical and game design. Those will both be hard. And the final question in the game will be a miscellaneous hard question.
Let's do it.
Let's move on. This is question 17 of 20. Which is the most appropriate for a 2D scalable character sprite with facial details? Is it A, 16 by 16 pixel art, B, 128 by 128 pixel art, C, vector art, or D, claymation?
So, 16 by 16 pixel art is absolutely not it. And well, I mean, more than likely not it. Depends. If the 16 pixels are just the face, then sure, why not? Claymation would be funny, but no. Claymation is not really what we're talking about here with sprites. 128 by 128 could be the answer. Again, it depends on if it's like a full body, how far it is, or if it's just the face. You get a decent amount of detail from 128 by 128. However, I think that the hint to this question is buried in the question, which you say is scalable. So if it's a pixel perfect game, then the pixels scale. If they just get bigger and it's fine. However, if it's not, you scale up a 128 by 128 and all of a sudden it just starts looking like garbage. So vector art is scalable infinitely because it's based on vectors and not rasterization. So I'm going to go with vector art, which would be a great way to make a 2D image.
C, vector art is Mike's final answer, and that is correct. Yeah, and it was perfectly reasoned by Mike. Whenever people ask me, I think a lot of people, we have a lot of beginners in our community, and especially when it comes to art skills, and I think a lot of them are gravitated towards pixel art as their first thing, and especially low resolution pixel art, like 16 by 16, which I actually think is one of the hardest things to do. And I like to point a lot of people in the direction of vector art for all the reasons we mentioned. It's easily scalable. You can kind of block things out with primary shapes, and you can get something pretty nice looking. I wouldn't recommend starting with claymation. That would be that'd be very tough. Although it can look really cool. I can't remember what is the name of that game. I saw it in one of the most recent festivals. Yeah. Yeah.
It does look really, really cool. By the way, someone in the chat mentioned a slight echo. Is your Twitch not muted? Maybe they're hearing my voice through your mic.
Oh, yes. I'm hearing your voice, which means they are too. It's just from the slight echoes from it booming through my room.
Ah, gotcha.
Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. Shouldn't be any more. Next question. You have 2 power-ups left. This one we already used. I'm just going to burn that for you. Or maybe not. Question number 18. This is one of those long text ones.
Yeah.
The default static friction value of a game object is resulting in that object moving when a weak force is applied. What value should I try to get it to resist moving in the first place, but not being so much that it's immovable?
Okay.
Long question. I'll give you an extra 30 seconds to think about it. There's a lot to this one. I think
so I believe the friction, because there's 2 frictions to a game. Well, there's 3. I think now it's because there's the angular friction, right, of it rolling, how much is resistant to angular velocity. And then in terms of linear friction, there's that initial friction coefficient, and then there's an ongoing friction coefficient. So how much it takes to start moving and then how much it takes to keep moving. And a lot of times those are the same. And I believe that value is normalized. And by normalized, I mean it's between 0 and 1, which rules 12 out. So that leaves us 0.5, 0.6, and 0.7, which are all very close. So I am going to... so the default static friction, I believe, is 0.1 of a game object is resulting in it moving when its weak force is applied. So resists moving in the first place, but not so much that it is immovable. So I'm just going to go with 0.5, right? Because anything else is just going to be more and more difficult to push. I might be wrong about it being normalized too. But because it's been a long time since I've created a physics material, which is what you create in order to change those coefficients on a collider object. So I'm just going to you know what? I've got more questions, don't I? Or I'm almost done with questions. So I'm going to do the pick 2.
Okay.
And I'm going to hedge my odds. I'm going to go with B and D. So either 0.5 or 0.7.
Okay. So you're going to use the hand of hedging, and you're going with 0.5 or 0.7? Those are your two guesses?
Okay. I'm probably like way wrong. It's probably 12. I don't know.
0.5 is incorrect, but you do have a second guess. 0.7
sure
is correct.
All right. Fantastic. It is normalized though, right? I haven't looked at writing a physics material in a long time.
Yes, it is normalized, and the default value is 0.6. So kind of the idea of this question was, if you know the default value, then you know, okay, I'll just bump it up a little bit. You have to know.
I didn't realize the default friction was 60%. That feels high, but
this is for this is specifically for the static friction value. I'm not sure. You're right. That does feel kind of high for the
continuous friction.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. There you go then.
All right. Let's move on to the last two questions.
All
you
right.
have one power up left. This one's glitched. At the moment.
Fine. I know I used it.
Yeah, you have the staff of scoring. That's one to use on a question you're pretty sure of. It'll double the points you get for that question.
All right, I should have used it on an easier one before we got to.
That's all right. Double points on a hard question is worth a lot. That'll definitely put you ahead of chat.
All right. See where we land then.
The next question is game design, and it is of the hard difficulty. Question number 19. Your boss, Sid Meier, has asked you to find the fun for a unit that is currently in a strategy game. The only lever you have is to increase the attack power. How much should you increase it by?
So this is an interesting one because there's two philosophies here, and I don't happen to know Sid Meier's philosophy on this. So when balancing something, you can make small increments. But that means you're just going to keep testing and testing and testing these small increments. And sometimes that can be hard to tell if, anything's happening. Otherwise, you can test with large increments, which makes it much, easier to see the results quickly. However, then obviously you've got to balance afterwards. So, I feel like I have this last power up. I don't know what's going to be in that miscellaneous category, so I feel like I'm going to use that last power up here.
Okay.
The one that's going to double my score. And I feel like we're getting to time, so I'm just going to go big, and I'm just going to go with D. I don't know if Sid Meier's would agree, but if it was me, I'd pump those numbers up fast because I like being like super powered, and then see like, is it fun when I'm like super awesome, and then I'd worry about balance later.
Going to use the staff of scoring, which doubles your points if you get it correct, and you're going to answer D.
I'm going to answer D.
D is correct. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Sid, we got to figure it out.
Yeah. This one comes a little bit from my world. As I mentioned, I was a strategy designer, worked on some 4X games. Sid Meier, one of his philosophies, I think this comes from Soren Johnson too, is when you're trying to balance something or trying to find the fun, either double or half the value. And the reasoning for this is you only have games are about finding the fun is about iteration, right? And pretty much all games are under a time crunch, under a resource crunch. So when you're doubling and halving, you're getting to the answer quicker. If I only bumped it up by 25%, that's one more iteration I got to make that doesn't give me as strong of a signal to find the fun.
There you go. Now I know. There you go.
That was well reasoned, though. That was well reasoned by you. All right.
I appreciate that.
Last question. It's in the miscellaneous category, and it is hard. I actually don't remember the question that I wrote for this. So
Perfect.
So we're both going to see what this is. Question number 20. What game won the prestigious Unity Golden Cube Award in 2015? Is it A, Kerbal Space Program, B, Pillars of Eternity, C, Endless Legend, or D, Angry Birds 2?
I was there in Boston. I was part of the judging committee for that. But man, 2015. So I'm going to say it's not Kerbal Space Program, not in 2015. It could be Endless Legend, but that feels not right either. Angry Birds 2. could have been it. But then Pillars of Eternity was really, really big after Diablo 3. And Diablo 3 was earlier than that. I think it was like 2013 or something like that. So, oh man, I'm between B and C on this one. And it's just going to be a pure guess because I can't remember Endless Legend. So I'm going with Pillars of Eternity. It's probably Angry Birds. I'm way off, but I'm going to go with Pillars of Eternity.
B, Pillars of Eternity is your final answer.
It is my final answer.
And it is correct. Yeah, it is Pillars of Eternity. Endless Legend, I think, came up second in voting and won the artistic category. I can't remember what it was called. But yeah, I remember when Endless Legend came out. It was like the most beautiful 4X game ever made at the time, and it's still very, very good looking.
I got really into Endless Legend too. But I never got into Endless Legend. But by the way, that's a great opportunity for me to say that the voting for the 2024 Unity Awards is currently live. So, do a quick search for that and vote if you'd like.
Awesome.
And but Pillars of Eternity, there we go. All right.
I never played Pillars of Eternity, actually.
I didn't either, but I worked with a bunch of folks who were obsessed with it. And it felt like they talked to me about it so much that I just never needed to play it because they told me every bit of it.
It was almost like the Baldur's Gate 3 of its time, don't you think? That's kind of what I got the vibe of.
Yeah. When I was really into at that time, Diablo 3 had then just come out on console. And so I was enjoying it a lot more on console, the second time around. So I never really got into Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah.
But yeah, tons of folks played it. It was a great game. I forget the famous designer behind it. But anyway, yeah, it was really cool.
Either way, that is the end of the game. We're going to tally up the score, see where Mike places on the leaderboard, and see the all-important question if he beat chat. First up, we have Mike's final score, which... Spoiler alert, you can see it in the center of the screen, but we're going to tally it up.
Watch those numbers go.
Yeah, just watch them climb. That's a pretty good score. I think overall, how many questions did you miss? Only 2?
2.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to beat. We're going to go on to the all-time leaderboard. We do have episode 0 with Yanny Boy. I did correct his score. Fun fact for you, Mike, you actually have played the hard version of the game. In episode 0, there was way more easy questions, but it was kind of it was slow paced. You know what I mean? So I ramped up the difficulty this time around. And,
I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, you did good. Oh, you're on here twice. Look at that. Okay.
So with a different score each time.
Yeah. All right. Now, the important question. Did you beat chat?
I don't know. A lot of folks seem to know the answers there.
Let's see. Oh, you destroyed chat.
Oh, man.
Come on, chat. What were you doing today?
Is that averaging their scores, or is that just assuming if anyone got it right? Okay.
It's averaging everybody's scores. I think in the future we'll have like a high score chatter. We'll have everyone's chat together, and then we'll have individual scores for other people. But
I have to wonder, because if I'm in the chat and you're in the chat and we're not playing, then we've definitely brought the average down, right?
It only tallies up the answers. So if we never brought in an answer.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. In the future, I'll just be there typing wrong answers.
Yeah, bring it down a little bit. Bring it down.
No, that's good. That's good. I appreciate this. This is fun. I like this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I think we do need to do the credits here. Mm-hmm. Top chat scores. Did chat beat themselves last time? No, the first episode, chat did even better.
But you said there were easier ones. So I feel like they worked through the hard stuff this time. Yeah,
this was a much harder quiz. So chat, you should feel good about this one. This one was a much harder quiz than the last time.
I feel like you're going to have a hard time creating answers every time you do this. That's going to be...
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to run out of questions.
Well, I'm going to hire you to write the questions since you brought so many, so many good ones this time. And I guess that's the show. We usually do like a little 5 to 10 minute kind of outro, Mike, just kind of chatting, hanging out. If you got to run for a meeting or something like that, all good.
I don't think so. Let's see what's on my schedule here. Nope, I got time.
Do you want to? Didn't you have one last question to bring?
I did. It's a weird one. And so again, this one's not multiple choice. But the question is always, and I used to ask my students this all the time, is why is computer like programming, why is code, computer logic based on binary, zeros and ones?
Oh, this is an interesting question. We do have a lot of people in our community that come from, really deep computer science backgrounds. I'm sure they'll have plenty of good answers. I see the first one I see is because von Neumann built it that way.
Well, and a lot of people say, well, it's because the switch is either on or off. But you can have three-way switches. You can have gradient switches. Like you can, a switch doesn't have to just be on and off, right? So there's a reason it was built. Switches were on and off. And I was just curious if anyone knew the answer, or if anyone was familiar with the mathematician George Boole. Charles Boole? Oh, I think it might be Charles Boole. Forget his name.
Either way, you could say any name, and I'm not sure. I always thought, yeah, it's like you said. My first inclination was like you said, like it just makes it easier if everything's on and off. It's kind of like I mentioned earlier. I'm a very amateur programmer, and I've always felt like with enough if statements, I can make anything happen. And the reason why I feel like that is because it is on and off. You know what I mean? But no, feel free to enlighten us.
So I think it's Charles Boole, actually, who is the reason we have the Boole variable, which is either true or false. But he came up with a form of mathematics, Boolean mathematics, right? Which is the basis for how computers think. Computers don't really think, but how you could kind of logic out computer logic, right? And it basically stated that, you can use addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division as a form of thinking operation. And so extracting from that, let's say you had a set of all of the apples in the world, and you wanted to add to that a set of all the oranges in the world, right? You would effectively have A times O equaling AO, right? That seems reasonable. Let's say you had a set of all the men in the world and a set of all the women in the world, right? So M times W would be MW, right? Seems reasonable. But let's say you had a set of all the men in the world and the set of all the men in the world. What would that be?
It's been a minute since I've done the algebra. M times M.
M times M or M squared.
Yeah.
However, how can you have more than all the men in the world? How can you have more men than all the men that exist? You can't. So you need a number system where a number or a variable multiplied by itself equals itself. There are only two numbers in existence that do that, 0 and 1.
Oh, man. Dude, that's perfectly explained.
1 is 1.
That is perfectly explained. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know how that actually turns into computer logic, but that's the basis of it. That's how the thinking machine was.
Dude,
created.
That's a mind-exploding moment right there. Mike, I think that's what I've always appreciated about your skill set is being able to take really complex things like that and like break it down into something that I can understand.
It's weird. I've explained it so many times incorrectly that I think I finally got it right. But no, it's weird to think about because, he came up with this math long before computers existed. This was like mechanical computers back when you would like spin them and the gears and stuff would do all the thinking.
Yeah.
It was crazy before like, actual computer systems.
Dude,
so, yeah.
That is awesome. I do see a question for you, Mike, in chat from Todd Makes.
Oh, any chance of returning to Code Mash? Actually, I'd love to, right? Code Mash is an event it's not Cleveland, it's not near Cleveland. It's at the Sahara Water Park in northern Ohio. I can't remember what town it's in. Sandusky, maybe? And it's like in early January, and they have like an outside hot tub for their one party. So we're just out there freezing but while swinging the hot tub and stuff. But it's also a very good code event. But the part I remember is drinking in a hot tub in the middle of January. But it's a really good event, right? And they cover, it's not just games related, it's all sorts of coding. It's where I learned to like write code for early drones back when drones were first becoming a thing. It's where I saw my first Google Glass headset when I was like, oh my God, I have to have that. And everyone's going to be wearing these soon. And it's a really cool event. So yeah, maybe I'd love to. Skibbity Ohio Rizzy, absolutely. Right? Now, pure Sigma on God. For real.
Oh no. All right. On that note, Mike, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know you have a very busy schedule.
I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming and showing everyone how good you are at doing your job of, explaining this kind of stuff. And I got to thank you too for all you've done for the community. Even like my personal career wouldn't exist if I didn't watch those Unity streams from a really long time ago.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Truly. And always happy to help. Anyone, my email's mike@unity.com. Anyone can always reach out. Just super awesome to hear, and always happy to do what we can.
Is there anything you want to plug or kind of direct people's attention towards before we wrap up here?
Unity 6 is coming out October 17th. It's going to be really, really good. Definitely worth checking out, especially a lot of the new graphical features are just really, really cool. Unity learn.unity.com. Check it out. Tons of learning resources there. Tons of opportunities to like advance your career, learning pathways, all this cool new stuff. Tons of ebooks. We have lots of Unity ebooks. I wish I quickly had like a go here for the ebooks because I don't remember the URL, but just, search Unity ebooks and you'll find we create these 100-page free ebooks that just really awesome technical information. And send me your games because I love seeing the stuff people are working on.
Awesome. All right, everyone. I think that's going to do it for us today here at the Game Dev Game Show. I don't know when the next episode will be yet, and I don't know who the next guest is. I'm sure we'll have Mike on again at some point in the future if you'd like to come on again. Maybe try and beat your old score.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, dude, that'd be super awesome.
All right. Well,
all right, everyone.
It's been great.
I'm going to stick around a little bit for after the show, and I'm going to talk to chat. Maybe we can get some feedback going about how the show went, but we're going to let Mike get out of here. And, catch you later, everyone. Perfect. Later, Mike. Thanks for coming on again, man.
Take care. Thanks.